Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox. We've had a little time to ask questions and check some things out. There are still some questions to be asked and to be answered, but I have a bit of an update on AddiRae, how she plays, and maybe a bit of an idea of who should really be maybe thinking about investing in her. You could put 20,000 Visior into the shard packs in the shop for this unit. It would be great for certain players because this is a great design for a free unit. Like I'm just excited about it. I think it's good, and I think it has the chance to change the meta in like in a way that I don't think we expected, but not like a terrible way, but an interesting way. I mean, the first and most obvious thing conclusion to come to about Miss AddiRae being a 100 cost powerful light unit that also has the ability to give ignore sure hit, and I mean, frankly, to be honest, this whole skill is what so many light evasion units really need on them these days to be able to compete with the meta that is currently here, which is kind of stepping on their power level quite a bit. This brings them, a lot of those teams, back into the fight in a really meaningful way. Now, I've already kind of gotten into that, and one thing that I didn't mention is that there's characters like Winged Sterne, who already has re-raise, so re-raise, courage, threshold heal, and ignore sure hit. He has some evasion potential, but that's not really going to be super important for him in most cases. But it's really good for him. For Warrior of Light, and this is, I'm not entirely sure at this point. I'm waiting to 121 for myself. This should be something I wasn't saving for this girl, unfortunately. I did not see this coming, but I do plan to at least 120 her soon, so I should know how Soul Regram interacts with certain things, or you, the viewer, could check some of these things out for me. Things I am interested in is, does her buff stack specifically with something like Omnilus? Because in theory, it should. Because I looked up, let's see, 4 notorious threshold healing units. And there's one thing that all of their threshold heals have in common. Here. And here. And now notice that Miss AddiRae gives HP recovery at a different threshold, which means that these could, in theory, trigger independently, that it wouldn't have to be innate or on a passive, such as it is for Regan or for King Mont, but that it could also stack with buffs from Perrine or Omnilus. I mean, Perrine has a bit of evasion potential herself. I'm not saying that she's evasive, but there is potential for that on the right team, and she would certainly benefit from having a second threshold heal in addition to courage, just to ensure that they land. She's already a very tanky, brawly unit to begin with. This would be just broken with her. I mean, not actually broken, but in the way that it would have to be to kind of justify some of the disadvantages that you would have from running a Raenbow team. And that's what this video is going to be more about. How can we get an interaction with AddiRae with other teams that overcome some of the disadvantages of running a Raenbow team in the current mono-elemental meta? And one way of going about that would be glove-based vision cards. These are going to be the strongest vision cards for her, but it could be a little bit more difficult to build a team around. Now, for people who went for Kefka recently, even though I recommended that you didn't, if you already had Mustang, if you were going the Mustang Kefka Fire Glove route, you were already committing to glove, which is, I never said don't do that, just that was probably the one group of people that actually did recommend go for Kefka. To maybe I'm just giving myself more leeway than I deserved there, but if you are one of those people, then you could definitely go with with building her up as a part of that team with glove-based VCs. I think she would be quite powerful, and into the future there's a lot of opportunities for other units to come in and break up a little bit of the elemental monotony that is there. I don't think that we really have, other than Garvel at this point, like other elemental 140 glove units, but there are certainly potential glove units, say even Zoma from Dragon Quest, in other elements at 120 that could potentially play well on this team, like Summer Helena as well, who may be getting a 140 quite soon, in which case she's going to be quite strong on this team. And I think that she also definitely has the potential to benefit quite well from Soul Regram as well. But if it does happen that it is not just on these thresholds, like she's definitely going to be good with Reagan. No matter how this goes, she's going to be a good partner for Daddy Reagan here. They are going to make quite the power couple. And also, speaking of power couples, she's regardless going to be quite good with King Mont as well. So you could also see her fitting really well onto a team like King Mont, Addison Rae, Sorrow, except that somehow or another, and no, this might be difficult to do with Mont's innate hate, but he would probably, well, I don't know. Maybe she would put it on both of them. That could certainly be a very powerful strategy and arena. Just getting the sure hit avoid on Sorrow would be amazing. Getting the threshold heal on him as well would be pretty cool, even though the courage is a little bit more redundant, and then getting a second threshold heal and courage on Mont would be just really powerful as well. So there's a lot of opportunities, actually. There's a lot of different team compositions that could benefit from her within Fire. So I think that she potentially actually is really beneficial for a bunch of different Fire meta play styles and brings a lot to those teams. But if she also works with 50% threshold buffs, if she can stack with that, if the threshold matters, which is something that I want to test out, or hey, if people have a 120 Addison Rae already and you have either Perrine or Omnilus or another character like Snow, for instance, that can give themselves a 50% threshold buff, go ahead and see if you can stack those up, see if they get multiple buffs that trigger. Now, talking about all of that, another question that I have about Soul Regram, because this is the first skill that has, to my knowledge, given a unit the ability to give another unit courage. We've had a lot of ways to give other units re-raise in the past, but courage, so far, this is a first. And I wouldn't imagine as a buff that this would stack with other units that have courage as a buff. However, oh wait, that's right, it was here, yeah. But ones that have thresholds that were added to things like master abilities such as Ketone and Skahal, will it stack with those? If you have a Ketone or you have a Skahal, this is very much a strategy that I would like to test out myself, but if you can beat me to it, if you can send me the evidence or the videos or whatever, I would greatly appreciate it, because I think that characters like this, like, you know, there's some times when Ketone gets a little overextended and one Drain Force just isn't enough to bring her back. Having a threshold heal for one would be great for helping her more reliably use one Drain Force to get above that 70%, but even discounting that, after you hit her again to bring her below that 70%, even without a second threshold heal, and even though she's below it, and even if that Drain Force doesn't get her above 70 again, she still has the buffed courage, which I would imagine can be dispelled, as most courage buffs can be, unlike her innate courage, which could still proc again, and if it did, I guess it would save the other courage from procking, or were they both proc at the same time? See, this is, you know, it could be that, or it could be, like I was explaining with the HP threshold thing, it could be that this is a secondary form of courage, or a second way to get courage onto someone. But I would imagine that, say, this courage right here, the passive courage off of the master ability, that one would be able to trigger before the buffed courage, so that the buffed courage would be an additional failsafe. And this means that essentially there's going to be a number of units that are going to be a lot harder to take off the field if you can stack up some of the things that Soul Regram is already doing. So, just saying, this is such a huge buff. But a thing that I didn't get, but I also, at the end of this, before I wrap this up, I want to get into a few finer details that I have picked up from people who've been able to build her further after reaching out similarly to how I'm doing in this video. One of the interesting things about her is that because Barrier Bop gives her a physical barrier, she will not attempt to double cast this the way a lot of other buddy buffs with this same buff pattern do. In addition, she has 3 casts, so this is just really good for guild battles. Not necessarily as good in arena, but it is still really good that it doesn't. You know what? No. It's kind of a nuisance when this kind of thing happens when a buff like this. So this one inherently not being able to do that, being very easy on the AI, I think that's quite good. The problem is that after that she only has Soul Regram and she has 2 casts of it. And since it's single target, if you don't give her something else to do, she will continue to cast it. So you want to be giving her, especially in Guild Wars, because you can probably get away with her casting it twice in arena or single fight formats such as that. But if we're talking about guild battle, then you probably want to be equipping her with a TMR that has 2 casts on an ability, and hey, looky what we have here. It also increases her critical rate, which is going to be important for getting the Dispel on Slate Wiper. Even though it isn't much of a priority for her, it is pretty good to have that. But as I noted when I first talked about her, between Cosmetic Magi and Blade Soul Lore, she has, in addition to 12 crit rate and a very much needed agility boost, 80% spirit penetration, 40% magic attack resistance penetration. So she's definitely, while this is an amazing supportive skill that I think is by far the most interesting thing about her, she is also a very competent DPS in that she has a lot of magic and she can hit it in a big AoE that actually reduces AoE resistance by a very significant amount, in addition to its huge debuffs as well. In a wide area of effect. But she also has a lot of strong single target damage, including 100% hit chance, which she's definitely going to need because she is blind. But that's okay. You can work around it. And it also means that she's not perfect. She has ways of countering, interestingly enough, the same kind of thing that she could do. So you could use this to counter her. Now, it is interesting that she has the -5 hate because she's not necessarily very durable. She is a little bit of a glass cannon otherwise. So having that negative hate and being able to make, say, a tank super durable and able to take a lot of punishment, I think makes her, especially her interaction with other tanks, really, really, really good for her. Because the more turns that she gets to stay alive, the more things that are just going to be wiped off the field for sure. Especially with her ability to get around courage, magic barriers. Really the only thing that could possibly save you from her that exists in the game right now would be re-raise and shell. Those 2 things. Which actually means that Sylvie probably has some of the best innate ability to tank her, but I wouldn't necessarily put her up to the job. She just has one buff that has both of those things, so I think that's kind of interesting. And hopefully we get a 140 Sylvie so that we can kind of maybe balance that out, but also because they would be a really interesting combo together as well. She also has Cura. I just want to bring this up because I didn't in the previous video, especially if maybe you are doing a double Soul Regram in your first fight in Guild Wars just for whatever reason. Then Kira gives her something to do at the beginning of the second fight just to bring people back up to health. I know it's not a huge heal and it will probably only hit 2 units, but if you've been doing things right, maybe only 2 units need the heal, and she should have pretty high magic, so pretty good healing abilities innately. Also, because of the way that she buffs, she should have good lateral movement at the beginning of fights, which should keep her a little bit more in the back row and should help kind of mitigate either AoE damage hitting her necessarily, or because she doesn't have any AoE resistance, and that's quite bad. And additionally, she doesn't really have good resistance to damage in general, other than having, you know, pretty high HP, although a lot of units have pretty high HP at this point in the game, at least from kind of the standard that I see her at in most builds of her. Although, hey, maybe I haven't seen the tricked out 80 to 83 reincarnation version of her yet. Maybe that has a ridiculous amount of HP, I don't know. But this definitely, another potential Raenbow matchup that I think would be really great for her would be Ruin Sterne. He already has a barrier that just stops 100% of 1 damage. Just like 1 hit of damage, completely gone. You give this guy courage and a heal and sure hit evasion, most importantly, because he can be built to be relatively evasive. It's never been quite reliable enough, especially as guaranteed hits started to slip into the game, but it might be a thing that he would be able to pull off a little bit better with that sure hit avoidance. Still, not someone I would want to run into high accuracy units, but he can also be built for pretty high accuracy himself, pretty much like I said in my 1-minute review of his 140. So he feels like, to me, a character that was really built to be a glass cannon. So everything you can do to keep him on the field one more turn is just so much potential for him to take something off the field or even wipe an entire team. I think that for glass cannons, especially such as himself, I just think he's a really stellar example of this, because again, the implications of all the units that could, like, this is such a big game changer buff in that it gives not 1 but 3 effects that are all impactful and important all at once, and all of which have never been able to give to just any unit in the game. It is a major game changer. So much so that, again, despite the fact that there's almost no way to tank this girl and she does amazing damage, just stellar. She has the highest base magic stat in the game. Bam. Even despite that, that is still, to me, the most interesting thing about her, because you can think about older units like this that are glass cannons that were balanced to not have those things, and then you give them those things, and maybe give them even a Halloween mask. Fuck it, why not? Give him re-raise, courage, a threshold heal, and just the ability to wipe entire teams in a single blow. Yep, that's balanced. So I think that there is the potential for so many off-the-wall, crazy Raenbow combos that, even though there is kind of a structural disadvantage to Raenbow teams that are just kind of crazy and broken and outside of the meta enough, that they could actually break through. And the most exciting thing about this is that, I mean, this is going to force the meta to change, and more, I think more so than anything that we've seen in the game, this is going to cause a massive diversion from what we expected with JP moving forward. Like, we're just not going to have the same meta as them again. This is very much the Starlight Elena 2.0 curveball that completely changes the way that the game goes forward, I think. Will this mean that Rafu won't be good? No, I'm not saying that, but there might be a very different playstyle that has emerged that might be able to compete with Rafu in a way that just didn't exist on JP, which frankly might be a more balanced game state than they experienced, but almost certainly a more interesting one. I mean, let's just check in on what JP is doing right now. Like, what's popular over there? What are... Hold on, what's popular over here? Oh, look. Dark, fire, lightning, dark, fire, light. Oh, earth, finally. Lightning, light. Just... Okay, let's see what JP's doing. Is it any better? Is it more interesting? Hell no, it is completely dark dominated. Dark is the top 3 by far. Like, as much as people hyped Bridal Elia being a game changer, and you can see that she has broken through this dark meta in a way that no other unit has, still number 4, hard number 4 to the dark trio, the undefeated trio of the JP meta. Like, this isn't a future that I really wanted to move into. So the fact that it looks like we might be taking a hard detour, or at least into something that might be more balanced than this. Again, not saying that these 3 units as a team won't be incredibly impactful moving forward, because they will still beat a lot of things. I'm just saying that maybe this creates an alternative playstyle that gives you a way of working a bit around this team in particular. Just saying. It seems like it could be fun. And hey, who doesn't want to play a fun game? Anyways, I've been Jackie Fox. Thank you for tuning in. Check out the description. There's a link down there to my Discord. You can come talk wotv with other people that have joined up. Find yourself a guild, all sorts of things like that. Also, within that link tree, you're going to find links to the whole Jackie Fox media empire. I've got other video channels. I've got backup channels for stuff that got banned by YouTube, which is a lot more stuff than you might think. Podcasts, just all sorts of things. Flip through it and think about maybe donating to the channel as well if you have the money, because I'm putting out the time. And that would be a pretty great way to say thank you to the effort. But if you don't have any money to do that, if you're strictly a free-to-play YouTube listener, you can always like and subscribe. Those things are free, don't cost you nothing, and really genuinely help in the algorithm. I'm serious. There's a lot of people who like to comment, man, this should get more views. Well, like and subscribe. It will. But also, hey, tell me what you think in the comments. And, you know, if you happen to have a 120 Addison Rae already, I would appreciate the answers about units like Perrine, Omnilus, Ketone, and Skahal, because if these things do stack, wow, that's just a variety of units that you could do some really busted soul regram shenanigans with, and I am absolutely here for it. So if you're excited for that too, send me your videos of you testing it out. I'll give your channel a shout out. And wow, I mean, we'll be making an exciting video together. I'm kind of surprised some of these questions haven't been answered yet, but maybe I'm just extra inquisitive. But if you happen to know the answers, just let me know. Send me a link, join the Discord, drop your evidence, link it in the comments. I don't care. Whatever you got to do to get me that. I think I and the rest of the wotv community is waiting to hear from you. So, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.